Yeah, hello everyone. You're welcome again to this conversation that is going on. Um, my name is Susanna Olatunji Komolafe, and I'm the initiator of the African History Month here in Ireland, an initiative that we use to celebrate the continent of Africa and African people. So we celebrate the shared history that we have with the entire world, the global presence of the world. We celebrate how our history, our people, our culture, and our heritage through the African History Month, which is this is under the platform of the Afro in the Diaspora Center, where I am the CEO and the founder of that organization here in Ireland. We do all things Africa, and we work with the African Caribbean community in projecting and profiling a positive image of who we are as African. So it's good to welcome you all to this conversation. So, for those that are joining me again, I have a special guest here with me this afternoon. We've been talking and we've been having conversation around the theme for this year, the African History Month celebration, which is the future, the African and the future of Africans. What is the future of Africa as a continent? And at the same time, what is the future of Africans here? So I have a very wonderful guest here with me that we are going to have this conversation together in terms of Brendan Radohoff. She's going to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about who she is and what she does. Now, you guys can share the link. We are presently being viewed on our social media platform. We're also being viewed on our Twitter page and also on YouTube. So if you want to get to see more of what we are doing right here, I will employ you to share the link. So you're welcome, Brendan. Do you want to give us a brief introduction to yourself?
Well, thank you so much for asking me to be here. And it's wonderful to learn about your program and what you're doing in Ireland. I am part of the Outreach Council for at the Center for African Studies at Howard University. There are 10 universities in the United States that have a special grant to teach about Africa, and our university at Howard University is one of those. So we call ourselves Outreach, and what I do mostly, I'm a librarian by training, and we provide resources to help our teachers and students learn about Africa. We have coming up this Saturday, and we welcome you to register because I think there's still time to register, that we're having our annual African Studies Teachers Workshop, which is virtual. And the theme, which I think really resonates with what your mission is, African cities across the curriculum, people, power, and culture. So we're trying to help our people understand what a powerhouse Africa is and has always been in terms of its resources and its people. And we have a tough job to do here in the United States because our people for so long have just been bombarded with distortions about Africa. So we're trying in this particular conference to let them know about African cities, and that's the focus for this coming conference. I am also the chairperson of the Children's Africana Book Awards Committee. We started giving awards to authors and illustrators for the best books on Africa in 1992. So we are struggling and pushing these books so that children will have really good books, accurate, balanced books to read about Africa. Here again, always trying to educate them about Africa's power and people. I want to invite you to visit our workshop, our website at cfas.howard.edu, where you can tap into the resources that we have on the website, and CABA, CABA books.org, where you can learn about the books that have won our award that are changing what our teachers and students think about Africa.
That is so excellent. It's a very broad introduction. Thank you very much for that. Now, just to bring it back again, welcome you again to this platform for this conversation. It's an opportunity to talk to you. Yeah, also in Ireland, I started up the African History Educational Center for the African Studies, whereby the importance of allowing people to understand the continent of Africa itself. What is our history? And to change the narrative, about the way people view Africa. Because you know yourself, being a descendant of African American living in America, that you said something there about disjointed, the way our history, our heritage, our culture has been disjointed, the way it has been shared. And it is time to have, if we are going to have a good future for Africa and for Africans, that we have to start changing those narratives. Again, do you want to tell us a little bit more about this conference that is coming up? If you can send me the link, I will share it on the platform so that people that would love to go and just register to participate in this wonderful workshop that is coming up, and they will be able to manifest their own um, contribution towards it. Thank you very much. I'm going to put that out there for those of you that are on Facebook, or you're on our Twitter page right now watching us, or on our YouTube, that you have the opportunity to watch it. You can click on this link and just go straight and register about yourself. So tell us about some of the works that you have done within your institution and in your own rights that you believe will play a significant role in the future of Africa and for the African people.
Well, of course, I guess, as I've said, that we are on this side of the Atlantic. And so we are trying to build here a constituency for Africa and educate our population so that they can participate and understand the power of Africa. And we've done that, again, through the different websites that we have, and also, most particularly for me, through the books that we are sharing in our Children's Africana Book Award. We just concluded our this past weekend our celebration of the authors who won our award this year. What I'm so excited about is that we are having more and more authors from the continent who are winning our award. So we had, coming from Ghana, Elizabeth Irene Beatty, who won for her book, which I'm going to share with you.
That's great.
Crossing the Stream. And Elizabeth and Mamle Wolo will be discussing this book and her book, The Kaya Girl, at our conference on Saturday. And we welcome you to listen to these wonderful authors, both of whom live in Accra, as they share their book with the American audience. We do have also, one of our winners is from the UK. This book
So
is
you're crossing across the whole continent, not just African continent, the Western continent as well. Go ahead, the European continent as well.
Yeah, so this one is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen, and perhaps you know her. So it's
No,
about
no.
the mermaid, Mommy Water. So we are doing a lot here through the books to help educate, again, our audience here in the United States. Any questions that people might have to ask me about the resources that we have? And I guess I should say, at Howard University, we are just one of 10. So through the African Studies Association and the website that we are sharing, you can link into all of the different centers that we have in the United States at universities that are teaching our people about Africa.
Uh, yeah, those books are very interesting. I think I'm going to get the link later on and put them out there in our comment section, whereby people can also click on those links on if you would like to buy some of those books. So, how do you think? My question would be to you is that how do you think that these books and some of you've written a book yourself? You
Uh, I have not. I'm not a writer.
okay? Okay,
I'm
so
a reader and a reviewer.
a
Those are my
reviewer, which
strengths.
is tell me what how do you think that some of these books what how do you think they are investing in the future of Africa? How do they invest in the future of Africa? Some of the works that these people have done.
Well, because they are getting our people educated about Africa. You know, I worked for 22 years in the school systems here. I live in Maryland, and so I know how our what our children here what they're not getting and what they don't know about Africa. I'll never forget, and this is one of the reasons we have our award. I was reading a book called Galimoto to a class of second graders, and the book Galimoto is about a little boy in Malawi who wants to make wire cars like the big boys in his town.
Mm-hmm.
After I finished reading the book, this little second grade girl who was 7 years old, about 7 or 8 years old, came up to me. She's from Liberia, and she
Yeah.
whispered in my ear, please read more books like Galimoto to my class. These kids
Oh,
don't know anything about Africa. Galimoto shows what Africa is really like. And so from that question and from that asking what that student asked, we then developed our Children's Africana Book Award so that we could provide books to our students that, as she said, please show our people here, the children here, what Africa is really like. And of course, that's a multiplicity of things, as she well understood.
yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I'm going to be a little bit inclusive to you privately in this case to say, when do you discover the Africanness in yourself? When do you discover that?
That's a very good question. As a child, I was a vociferous reader. And probably one of the things that stands out most in my memory is, reading about the Congo and reading about the Mau Mau, so uprising. And I read in the paper that a little girl said, I used to like Africans, but I don't anymore because one of them threw an orange on my dress. I was struck by that because I lived in the segregated South,
Yeah.
where every day I lived on the border between white and black. And I was often confronted with people that simply treated me badly because of the color of my skin. So my question in my head when that little girl, my thought was, well, what has happened for you to the people that you are treating for them to be so angry? So I think that was my first sort of connection. And then I remember seeing pictures of Anwar, of Nasser. And I thought, oh, that man looks like he belongs to my church. So I was kind of unconsciously making these connections, and it really wouldn't come to fruition until I went to college. And at that time, I wanted to study about Africa, but although I was at a Black university, there were no courses on African history. So I took the best courses that I could to learn about Africa. And then, of course, over time, this would just begin to evolve. And I went to work in Massachusetts. And being a Southerner, that was like going to a foreign country for me, going up to Massachusetts, where they didn't even understand. Sometimes they made fun of my accent being from the South. Um, but I was confronted one day by I had started to work in a school, a very affluent white school in Brookline, Massachusetts. And I was confronted by a very angry mother. There were 6 Black people in that school, me as the only adult, and a few other children who were coming from the neighborhood called Roxbury. And this was one of the mothers, a Black mother who came in, and she practically threw a book at me and asked why I had given that horrible book to her child to read. I had not given it to her, though my colleague had, and I hadn't read it. but it was The Voyages of Dr. Doolittle. And that is when I was introduced to the problems in children's literature. I told the parent, when the parent showed me what her child read in that book, I told her she needed to take it to the principal and ask that the book be removed for reevaluation. And that was the beginning of the struggle. The librarian that I worked with, when she came back and found out what had happened, was very angry with me for sending that book to the principal. But that was my real awakening. And I began to read all of the books in that library that had anything to do with Africa. And that's when I discovered the horrible distortions and problems in children's literature on Africa. But I also discovered in that same library 3 books that changed my life. One was The House of Bondage by Ernest Cole, which documented in photographs the apartheid system. There was also a Time Life book about South Africa, and a book called The Bitter Choice by the Legums. In that book, there were 8 stories about 8 people who were changing, black and white, who were changing, who were leading the struggle, the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. One of whom was, of course, someone I had never heard of, who was Nelson Mandela. Now, this was in 1967, mind you, and Robert Sobukwe, and Bears Norde. That book changed my life more than any other, because it gave me a way that I could participate in change. So, and that's just a little bit, I guess, a lot, I guess, about how I got connected to Africa. I'm not sure if I'm still connected. Okay.
Just to say a very big apology to our viewers that has been watching us. There's a little bit of an interlude in terms of the connectivity connection. Yeah, there was a bit of problem there. I hope you guys will definitely understand with us. Technology always have its way somehow. So we're totally sorry for that. So we're back again, um, and I'm going to get our guest speaker that we're talking to, having this conversation. She's going to introduce herself again to every one of us, just to get to for us to get to know her a little bit more. I'm sorry there, Brendan, for that. I'll just get you to introduce yourself again. So just to start up the from where we stop. Um, just
Yeah, and
let
I'm
us
not
know
quite
you
sure
more.
where did we stop? I'm
So
not sure.
I asked you a question about the Africanness in you. That tell me a little bit about the Africanness, and you were talking to me about the books that you've read and how those books have really impacted you, and the book that specifically changed your whole orientation in terms of you're finding yourself as an African, and showcasing that to the world. So tell us your name again, briefly tell us what you're doing, tell us about the upcoming event again, and then we go back to the conversation from where we are.
Okay, so I'm Brenda Randolph. I'm the Outreach Director at the Center for African Studies at Howard University here in Washington, D.C. And our center is one of 10 institutions in the country that are federally funded to take knowledge about Africa into the schools and community and have an exchange with people in the community. I'm also chairperson of the Children's Africana Book Awards. And for 30 years, we have been giving awards to authors and illustrators for the best books on Africa.
Thank you very much for that. I know you were telling us about the book. It was so interesting talking about the book from South Africa that really changed your perspective of who you are, and the Africanness that is in you. And again, I believe that really showcase how you as an individual is impacting the future of Africa. So tell us more.
Yes, I'm not quite sure, but as I think I was saying, I was working in a very affluent school, predominantly white school in Massachusetts, and that is where my real connection began. I won't say you may have heard part of the beginning of that, but yeah, the books that changed my life were The House of Bondage by Ernest Cole, who gave
Yes.
photographs in South Africa of the impact of apartheid. There was a Time Life book, which was actually the first time I'd ever heard about apartheid. This was 1967. I had never heard of it, didn't know what it was, but I understood it as soon as I did because I had grown up in the segregated South. And then there was the book called The Bitter Choice by Colum Legan, which showcased 8 South Africans, black and white, who were leading the anti-apartheid fight. And so, because of that, I got very engaged and started organizations to be an activist around the issue of against apartheid and against the Portuguese colonialism.
Yeah.
And then also I became aware, as I was saying, as I read all of the books in that library where I was, and I discovered how distorted things were in the presentation of Africa. I think I should say that also I had escaped most of those bad books because I had grown up in the segregated South, and I had
Yeah.
grown up in a school where I believe my librarians protected us from that kind of literature. So we weren't seeing ourselves in any of the books, but we weren't reading what others were, the way Africans and Black people were denigrated. So that was a gift to me. I did want to share with you, I don't know if I can share the screen, about our workshop that's coming up this Saturday.
Yeah, if you have it ready, if you have it ready, that's
I do.
fantastic. Yeah.
So I'm not sure what I should do, or will you handle that?
Now, let me see.
Do I hit present?
No, when you're ready, I just get you to share your screen. I'm
Okay.
coming.
I'm not sure what I have clicked on it, but I just still see myself. Can you see it?
So
Well, Well, let me just tell you what the I'm going to read to you, at least share with you some of what
Yeah.
this
So
workshop is about.
just click on share because you're sharing on your side. And I'm thinking that should work. Okay. I'm not quite sure now. I think I might just be sharing on my side, whereas you are supposed to be sharing.
Can you can you see it? Can you see it now? No?
No, I'm not seeing it. I'm trying to figure out how to give you the permission.
Yeah, well, I kind of went through that, I think, and it says that I'm sharing, but let me just share with you what.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So the title of the workshop is African Cities Across the Curriculum: People
Okay, so
Power,
I've seen it now.
People Power, and Cultures. And so what we are doing here, as it says, that we're asking K-12 teachers, that's what we call, primary and secondary school teachers here, to engage with African cities as a place and a concept. The theme of cities offers concrete ways to bring Africa into K-12 classrooms. We are examining the long history of urbanism in Africa. We are helping our teachers identify the types of cities that are found on the continent. And we're discussing crucial questions about African cities in the context of the climate crisis and learning about the struggles people are waging for sustainable futures. We have various points that we really want teachers to understand: that Africa counts as the fastest urban growth in the world, with an overwhelmingly youthful population expected to double in 30 years' time. To think Africa is to think cities in terms of private and public spaces, sustainable and healthy places with rural pastoral dwellers, which sustain cities and nations in many ways. And to think of African cities is to think of innovation, experimentation, technological advances, creativity. We talk about how important African cities were in the past. Our teachers know absolutely nothing about that for the most part here. And we talk about how cities will continue to impact and shape the futures of urban and global Africa. We have we're going to begin our conference with our president, who is going to welcome everybody. And I've been very excited about this presentation by Dawit Binti: How to Engage with African Cities, Thinking Through the Lens of Multiplicity and Sustainability. Then we will break down into the various sessions that we are going to have. So I'm going to stop sharing at
Yeah,
this.
no, yeah, that's okay. But just hold on a minute there. What date is this conference coming up,
This
please?
Saturday.
This Saturday. And what time will it be in terms of in the GMT?
Yeah, so it's going to start
It's
at
5 hour
12:01.
difference anyway. It's 5 hours
Yeah,
difference.
see, at 12:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you all about 5 or 6 hours ahead.
Yeah,
So
five
it'll be
hours
evening for you.
specifically.
Yeah. And so we're really truly also excited about this message from Evelyn Acham, The Future of African Cities. She's a young activist from Uganda. So
Yeah,
she's going to be also kicking off. We really wanted to engage and include African youth in this discussion.
yeah.
So you will be able to hear her. I'm just going to
It, it's
scroll.
it's actually so interesting seeing the titles of your upcoming conference correlating with our theme this year, which is about the future of Africa and Africans. It's just see that we are thinking alike, even though we are all in different places, but we are thinking alike in terms of the future that we believe Africa has to offer the world. And that is something that I find very interesting to see that. So it means that for those of us here in the Western world that might be attending this, which is the Western region here anyway, attending the register to attend this workshop, it will be around 5 p.m. Definitely around 5 p.m. Over here. So that's 5:10. So for everyone that if you're looking forward to it, I put the link in the chat space, comment space. You will, if you're on Twitter, just click on it to register yourself. If you need further information, you can contact us on our social media platform. And we will try to put this on our website as well so that you can seek any information you'd like to know. So thanks for sharing that with us. it's interesting that we could, we could have an opportunity to
And
share
I
that.
think I will talk to my colleagues who are sort of running the registration, because it does say, that there's a fee to pay, but really for most people, it's just essentially free.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
will, and let's stay in touch so we can make sure
Oh, we would
that.
definitely you definitely have to stay in touch with the African Study Center here as well, which it's an interesting opportunity for that big collaboration whereby we can always enjoy each that comfort of knowing knowledge from shared knowledge from each other. So we're really looking. I'm excited to look forward to what the future can offer with in terms of this. So to take this further, and there's a question there which you can answer if you want to. So what is your take on the African currency? Because this is a conversation that has been happening around us. What is your take on the African currency as a way forward? In terms of our economic power, in terms of the future of Africa, what do you think that will do? Because if you look at the continent of Africa itself, our natural resources is the breadth of the Western world, and there's just no doubt about it, because the entire continent of Africa is full of natural resources, and most of these natural resources are utilized, is our market grant for the Western world to use in terms of that. So what do you think would be the future of African in terms of
That
our
is,
currency?
that's a little bit beyond my ability to focus on. I'm a librarian, and my whole thing is about books, but you can do a lot to educate me and others about that. So I don't want to stray into ways, to areas and avenues that I have no expertise. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's okay then. That's okay. I think in general, I just wanted to get your view in terms of when you think we're saying that Africa is an economic power, and what economic power really means too is not just in terms of our education, educating our young people, educating people about what African can offer, but what we can offer in how does that affect our economic growth, and that will make a big difference to what the future of Africa will look like, and the change of narrative itself. So, but we can also talk, you've talked about the slavery, in America. Uh, this is where we're educating people about it. And in Africa, we experience colonization. Most of the African nations were colonized. You were mentioning the Portuguese there in terms of their slavery. We talked about the British Empire in terms of colonizing a lot of western part of Africa, and we retain some of their languages. So if you look at, for example, I'm from Nigeria. We retain the English after the colonization. We have other places whereby they were colonized by the Portuguese or French, whereby they retain their language. Do you think we should, just a general thought, do you think we should drop those languages, and go and just use our own native dialects to be major languages? I know that it might be a difficult step to take. There's a lot of things.
Well, I mean, that is a big and ongoing topic at African Studies conferences.
Yeah.
And some years ago, maybe 15 years ago, Ngugi wa Thiong'o had made the decision to only write in Kiswahili.
Yes.
Period. Full stop.
At least I can see that because being the director of an African Studies Center, these are part of the conversation that we're bringing into the table.
Mhm.
There's so much about Africa that we can talk about, but we're talking about the future. And this, in order to talk about the future, you have to talk about what is happening in the present and how that can affect the future of what Africa holds
Yeah,
forward.
well, I mean, I understood Ngugi's point. And because if you don't use the language, you lose it.
Yes.
And so we do have to make sure that one of my best friends, Leseho Malepe, is in South Africa right now, and doing what she can to promote languages in South Africa. And she's doing translations so that people can actually read sophisticated books in their own
Own
language. In
languages.
their own
Yeah.
language. So
Yeah.
I don't think we have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You and I are able to communicate because we both speak English. So
Yes.
it's not a question of or, it's a question of and. We can do both.
We can do both. So so we've so much imbibed into the language in terms of the English language, or for those that speak French, to totally throw it away, which is understandable in terms of communication, in terms of marketing, in terms of, there's so many reasons that we can't throw it away. But like you said, I think what we can invest in for the future is to promote and to do such things like those women are doing. Make sure that every education that we give out as educators is can be read in a language, all the various languages within the nation of Africa, because that is how you learn.
And
That
I
is how
want
you learn.
to point out a project done by Loretta Trott in South Africa. This was some years ago that she started, and she got an award for it from the um, uh, USBBY, which the International Association of Books for Children. And it was because what she had done was to go into the rural areas in South Africa and hear the stories of the people there. And she then would write down the stories, then come back. The books would be published in the language of that particular community. Then they
Yeah.
would print the books and bring the books back, and then the community had their stories in their own language. So that was a very and it's the IBI. I should have said the International Board of Books for Young People, IBI, and our branch of it is the US
US.
IBI. So
It, uh,
very
and
important to work on those language issues and make sure that people have books and their students are reading in their own language.
Yes, and that is really the most fundamental way to educate and to change the narrative in terms of the continent and the beauty that Africa continent has to offer. And for African people, wherever we are, either the descendant of Africa, either in America, either in Britain, any part of the Western world that we are, that is when we can be seen, and we can celebrate that duality that we have in terms of our nationality. It's an advantage, that even though the story did not begin as if it was an advantage, today it is more advantageous to us as a community, as a people. And I'm delighted that we had this conversation. I am hoping and I'm looking forward actually to us having a series of conversation around some of the works you're doing over there in America in educating the descendants of Africans that have been there for years and for years, and um, never had the opportunity to understand how great Africa is as a continent. The narrative that has been given to make them even hate that continent itself, talk less of even the imagination of going there. But because the moment you start appreciating where your origin is from, then you live and walk with pride. And I guess for people to become your masters, they have to relegate you to a place whereby you don't have any kind of that sense of pride within you to really shine who you are. I say that as Africans, wherever we are all the same. It doesn't matter. Even for those of us that we were born and bred in Africa, when you meet somebody that has a descendant of Africa, wherever they are, all over the world, you can still be able to connect with each
Uh,
other.
can I share a project that I think speaks to that we developed at Howard University?
Yeah, yeah.
It's called Discover Africa in the World.
Wow,
And
wow.
what we are doing, and we invite you to participate. I mean, at the risk of getting knocked off here, I'm going to try to share this again so that let me know if you can see.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. And I think I'm learning as well in terms of us sharing those content. I'm going to put it up
Yeah,
now.
so you get there too.
Yeah.
Let me know when you can see my screen.
I can actually see your screen, but I
Oh,
can just see the Google. I'm not seeing yet um the content. So you
Okay,
let
yeah.
us see
So
the
here,
content.
this is my nonprofit's website, and from there you can get to things at the projects also that we have at the university. But this
Okay,
is
African
Africa
Access.
Access, and this is where you read about our books and awards. But here, if you come down under reviews and resources, you will see. I'm going to go back to the Gold Road because I think that's important. But this is Discover Africa and the World. And what we are doing, it started out as Discover Africa in in the Americas, but
Yeah,
we're trying to expand that so that you see, we are asking people to identify things connected to Africa in their own communities. So and these are outside of Africa. So we're
mhm,
talking about how Africa appears in the world, United States and Mexico, Canada here, is Europe here. So
Europe.
let's just, and we have most, of course, in the United States. So we're just really beginning Europe. But let's look here at the UK to see the couple of sites that we have. Here is, I love this one, Ayuba Suleiman Jallo, and you will see that.
Ayuba Suleiman.
Yes, Jallo, who his portrait hangs in the, or at least it was hanging in the London's National Portrait Gallery.
Yeah,
He was enslaved in the United States, here, and then after 3 years, for him, an involved but an incredible story that he was able to go back home. But on his way back home, as he was going, he stopped in the UK. He
yeah,
actually had an audience with the king and the queen there, who we totally impressed. So we have put him on the website, but most of them, as I said, are in the United States, and you
yeah.
can see all of the different states.
But I think I'm going to work with you to start identifying Africans here in Highland, um, because even though the Africans in Ireland are mostly full with new generations, you will find mostly new generations of Africans here, which I'm one of them. Um, so probably being one of them. So I think that we're going to work together in, allowing that we just to link the websites together in a way whereby this can also be seen
Yeah, this
by
is so. I think
others.
this can be very powerful as we work together
Yeah.
to, and it's something that young people can work with. I have a 15-year-old granddaughter, and she's identifying. She lives in Philadelphia, which is 2 hours from here. She's identifying sites that are in her city.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Shout out to her. Um, well, and I pay her. Every time
Grandma is shouting out to her.
every time we she does a site, and she just wrote me last night, do you have more work for me? um so if she can identify the site and she can write about it, I guess that's just the beginning of one. Trying to
Exactly.
find another one here, maybe. There's a little information there, and I give her credit when she does something, and we
Mm-hmm.
want students to get engaged with that in
Yeah.
their own communities. So then I did want to share with you, I can go back here. Um, uh, to share the Gold Road. In the United States, one of the big educational push for years, for decades, has been the Silk Road and understanding how that connected people with global trade. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we think even more important, or just as important, is the Gold Road, which
Mm.
of course is looking at the development of exchange beginning in Mali. So when you come here, you can click on all of these different time periods, and then
Mm-hmm.
you decide which topic you want to explore. And so you were talking about gold. We were talking about coins. So
Yeah.
this is historically, as we come and we learn about the fact that uh, at a much earlier point than anybody thought, that there were gold coins that were being minted uh, in
In
Africa, in West
Mali.
Africa. Yes. So any of these topics you can go and you can click on, and you can find out about that particular topic. So we are continuing to add to this. We welcome people who have information that they want to connect to it. Probably the most, let me close this one, is I'm going to show you about, of course, the most famous is Mansa Musa. which just, can I get this to scroll? This is probably the most complete one that we have. Again, this is a work in progress. So when you come here, you will see, if you click on this, this is actually a little video, which is done by Ted Ed. I don't know if you know about TED, the TED Talks, but
TED Talks, yeah, yeah,
yeah, so this is a TED Talk for kids. And this is one, and teachers can actually create something and put and have it be go on their website. You know, you have to. There's a bar. You have to.
mm,
They have to accept it. But we have all of our information. We have the bullet points. What's most important that we want you to know about Mansa Musa, and then we have secondary sources. We have primary sources. So this is all historical, not
yeah.
present day, but you know, the past is also the future. So we want
Yes, the past
people
is
to,
also the future. That's what we're saying. The past is also the future,
the past is
and
also the future. So
that determines the more knowledge we have of the past, the more knowledge we take into the future,
exactly.
and to to shape the future for what we really love the future to look like for us.
And one of the things, and then I will stop talking here, but this is my newest one on the website, which is you know, sometimes as a librarian, my job was to help students know what topics were possible for them to explore.
Yeah,
So sometimes we don't always have all the lessons, and that's for the teachers to work with, but we
hmm,
can give them the key words, as we call it here, things that they can search for and find information. And when you go on the web, one of the things is, as soon as you put a website up, oftentimes that link may be dead. So we try
yeah,
not to do as much of that and give students the key words that they should look at. Now, if we come down here to cities, then we have, which is what our conference is on, we will
yeah.
see
Cities in
cities in
Africa.
Africa. We have them divided to big cities and port cities. And one, which is the newest one, I'm not sure I had, because I'm not sure I have it linked on here. Hold on. Uh, let's see, because this is what we will be beginning our workshop with, which is a
Hmm.
gallery showing, here, let's see if this is going to work for me. You make it larger.
Yeah, I've seen the
Okay.
City of Africa.
And then it just scrolls and shows you the cities.
Yeah, so that's the Cape Town.
Yeah, so that's how
That's
we want them to
Congo.
see.
That's Egypt.
We have old, and we also have
The
new,
new, the new, the new view.
the
Yeah,
new view.
that's Egypt new now. That's Egypt. Yeah,
And
those
it
are the
goes
two.
on all the way to Zimbabwe.
Yeah, that's Entral, which is in Ethiopia.
Asmara.
That's Entral Asamara as well.
Uh-huh. Addis
And that's
Ababa.
Ethiopia, which is Ababa, Addis Ababa. I think many people will know
And this
that.
is
That's
this is
Ethiopia,
one of
the
the
seal.
mountain cities. And so, you know, I found out about Desi because there's a restaurant here called Desi, and I went and I said, "Well, what's that mean?" And that's how the discover part of it works. Of course,
Yeah,
Lalibela in Ethiopia.
yeah.
Um,
And this is Gabon,
yeah,
Libreville, and that is Gambia.
yeah, Bonjour,
Baju, yeah.
Accra. Look at Accra.
Accra.
Oh my goodness, you see.
Wow.
So this is, we think that this was
And
absolutely
that's
going
Guinea,
to
Conakry,
change how, you know, there's an article that I wrote some years ago
Ivory Coast,
with a
yeah.
professor. It's called "I Didn't Know There Were Cities in Africa."
Wow,
And that
yeah,
is a question, that's a statement that a child made.
yeah.
And
And like Brendan, I think that is just based on the narrative that has been given to people,
yes,
um, and to the extent that even I think it's all about displacing people descended of African in knowing the truth about who they really are or where they come from.
yes, exactly.
That's
So
Margaret Duster.
I'll stop sharing, but you can,
Yeah, so thanks so much for having you. Before we go, I'd just like you to just uh just give your own say of the day and what you like to see in the future of Africa. We like we said, yeah, the present really plays a significant role in what the future of Africa is.
well,
What is it?
I guess, okay, my focus is always here. And I want people to understand here that what we do affects what happens in on the continent. And right now the crisis is climate. And we are producing all of the bad things that then cause desertification and increasing the immigration. People don't want to leave their homes. They want to stay in their homes, but conditions are forcing people on the move.
Yes.
And so, what we are doing here, more than what it's not what's happening there that's affecting us, but what we are doing here that are causing all of this displacement and pollution and a crisis situation on the continent. So, that is where we are focused on climate and what we can do to make a difference so that people can live in their own communities, produce in their own communities, and exchange what they produce with us in an equitable way.
Thank you very much for your contribution to this conversation. It's a joy to have this opportunity to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to good and well preserved collaboration in the future. Just we're
Absolutely, and come to
we're
our
talking.
conference on Saturday if you can.
Yes, I'm going to share those conference and as many people as we can, to get the place, get people to come and share within the knowledge that is out there.
Okay.
So on my side here, I want to say a very big thank you to my guest for having the opportunity to chat with her and have this conversation. And for the audience that will come across this, so for those of you that is watching us live, and for those of you that will have the opportunity to watch us later on, either on your Twitter page or your Facebook page or on the YouTube channel, just to say thank you all for joining in with us. Thank you for being part of the future that we're hoping that Africa is going to offer each one of us and to the world that we're looking to. Again, happy African History Month to all Africans here in Ireland and all around the world celebrating the continent of Africa, Africans and Caribbeans, creating positive and parts within the culture in the community. So thank you to everyone and enjoy your afternoon. Hope we didn't take much of your time.